In the dead of night, Arkadelphia's crumbling streets whisper of a dark pact, sealed over a century ago. The town's once thriving heart now beats with a terrifying secret. The Kinwell family, bound to the Devil's Bride, controls not just the land, but the souls of its people. As a stranger arrives, determined to expose the truth, the air thickens with a promise of horror, ritual, and blood. Will he survive the town's curse, or will he become another lost soul? In the year 1905, a small Arkansas town, once a lively center of trade and community, has fallen into decay and suspicion. Behind its everyday facade, rumors swirl about a powerful family that controls the town through fear and superstition. The family is said to have made a dark pact with an otherworldly entity, known only to the townsfolk as the Devil's Bride. This chapter sets the stage, providing a glimpse into the town's eerie atmosphere, where shadows loom over every corner and the strange occurrences go unnoticed by the unsuspecting. The story begins with the sudden arrival of an outsider, a journalist who is determined to uncover the truth of the rumors. Part 2. The Rituals in the Inbred Family. As the journalist delves deeper into the town's history, he discovers the truth behind the Devil's Bride and the family that has governed the land for generations. A twisted ritual involving blood sacrifices and the sealing of an unholy pact has tied the family to demonic forces, granting them unimaginable power in exchange for their souls. The family, deeply inbred, exhibits disturbing behaviors marked by their unholy pact. The journalist interviews a few brave souls who have witnessed the horrors firsthand, but their testimonies only add to the terror. They speak of strange rites performed under the cover of night, where the town's gambling dens are used as fronts for these sinister practices. Part 3. The Gambling Dens and the Unholy Power. The gambling dens are the heart of the town's social activity, but they also serve a more nefarious purpose. Here, the rituals continue, masked as ordinary games of chance. As the journalist continues to investigate, he uncovers hidden chambers beneath the dens, where the rituals are performed and where the unlucky souls who lose at the games are sacrificed. The sinister energy in these dens is palpable, and the townsfolk are too afraid to speak out, knowing the consequences of defying the family. The journalist stumbles upon an ancient ledger that details the full extent of the dark dealings, leading him closer to the heart of the mystery. Part 4. The Final Confrontation and the Unresolved Mystery. In the final act, the journalist finds himself cornered by the family. The tension reaches its peak as the demonic rituals come to a head, culminating in a horrifying confrontation between the journalist and the family. He narrowly escapes with his life, but the truth of the town's darkness remains unresolved. As the journalist leaves Arkansas, he cannot shake the feeling that the town is still under the Devil's Bride's influence, and that the horrors he witnessed will never truly end. The final lines echo with the unanswered question: can evil ever truly be eradicated, or does it linger in the hearts of those left behind? Step 2. Story. The small town of Arkadelphia, Arkansas, once bustling with energy, had grown eerily quiet by the spring of 1905. The cobbled streets, lined with once vibrant storefronts, now lay abandoned, the doors shut tight against the mysteries lurking just out of sight. The town's air hung thick with rumors, whispers of an ancient pact sealed long ago between the town's ruling family and a dark force they called the Devil's Bride. Few spoke of it aloud, but every local knew of the family's bloodline, steeped in secrecy and the unnatural power they wielded. It was on one particularly foggy morning that an outsider, a journalist by the name of Thomas Clark, arrived in Arkadelphia. Thomas had heard rumors of the Devil's Bride from a fellow journalist whose sudden disappearance was hushed up by the town officials. Driven by a need for answers, Thomas came to uncover the truth. But from the moment he set foot in Arkadelphia, something unsettling weighed heavy on his chest. The first few days were quiet, almost too quiet, as if the town itself was holding its breath. It wasn't until he made his way to the outskirts of town where the family's mansion stood that the whispers truly began. Older townsfolk, reluctant to speak, muttered darkly about the deviant practices that had been passed down through the generations. It was the oldest families of Arkadelphia, the Kinwells, who were said to have been the originators of this unholy pact. Their bloodline, some said, was as much demon as human. One night, after gaining the trust of a local bartender, Thomas learned the truth. Beneath the town's gambling dens, hidden rooms lay where the Kinwells performed their rituals. These were no ordinary games of chance. The stakes were far higher. Players who lost weren't just left penniless. They were marked for sacrifice, drawn into the family's dark rites. The bartender spoke of the strange, horrifying visions that plagued those who had once partaken in these rituals, of eyes that glowed with an unnatural fire and whispers that could drive a man mad. With this knowledge, Thomas found his way beneath one of the dens where, to his horror, he uncovered an ancient ledger detailing the rituals that had been performed for decades. He read in disbelief as the ledger chronicled blood sacrifices, ties to an unknown force, and the ominous mention of the Devil's Bride, a being said to grant power in exchange for devotion. The journal's last entry hinted at the family's plan to increase their influence through a final, irreversible sacrifice. As Thomas delved deeper, he found himself becoming entangled in a world he barely understood. The town's eerie atmosphere became suffocating, as if the very walls were closing in. On his final night in Arkadelphia, he was confronted by the Kinwell family. The head of the family, a gaunt man named Samuel, revealed the truth. They had never been fully human. The pact they had made had bound them to an eternal existence, marked by the rituals and the sacrifices they had made to sustain their power. The confrontation grew violent. Thomas fought with everything he had, narrowly escaping the clutches of the Kinwell family. But as he fled into the night, a lingering sense of dread followed him. As he reached the edge of Arkadelphia, he turned back one last time, feeling the weight of the town's curse settle into his bones. He had exposed the truth, but some truths, he realized, were better left untouched. The town remained a place haunted by its past, where the legacy of the Devil's Bride would never be erased, and where the echoes of the past continued to cast a long shadow over the living. Thomas Clark, determined to uncover the truth about Arkadelphia's dark past, dives deeper into the town's history. His initial inquiries lead him to the Kinwell family, whose mysterious presence looms over the town like a curse. The family's mansion, perched at the town's edge, is a grim structure, its walls steeped in secrets. As Thomas gathers information from reluctant townsfolk, the terrifying details of the Kinwell legacy begin to emerge. The family's connection to the Devil's Bride, a sinister force whispered about in hushed tones, reveals itself as the key to understanding the town's disturbing history. It becomes apparent that the Kinwells are not like the other townspeople. Their lineage is old, and their bloodline is said to be tainted, polluted by generations of inbreeding. The more Thomas learns, the more he realizes that the family's unusual behaviors are not mere eccentricities but symptoms of a much darker influence. The Kinwells, though outwardly wealthy and powerful, are marked by an unnatural aura, as if their very existence is sustained by something other than human means. The family's members, when seen in person, display unsettling physical features: eyes that seem too wide, skin that seems too pale, and voices that lack warmth. Their presence carries an undeniable sense of dread even to those who have lived among them for years. Through conversations with a few brave souls, those who have witnessed things that cannot be explained, Thomas uncovers the horrifying truth. The Kinwell family's pact with the Devil's Bride goes back generations. According to the testimonies of those who dare to speak, the family made an unholy agreement to gain power, wealth, and eternal life at the cost of their souls. In exchange for demonic favor, the Kinwells were bound by a vow to perform rituals, blood sacrifices that involved the lives of those who unknowingly become part of their twisted world. These rituals were believed to have originated in the town's early days, when the Kinwells, then simple settlers, stumbled upon an ancient relic or object that bound them to the supernatural force. The rituals, which take place under the cover of darkness, are said to be as grotesque as they are mysterious. The townspeople speak of eerie chanting, strange symbols painted in blood, and the eerie glow of fire-lit ceremonies. The Kinwells, it is said, have created a secret chamber beneath their mansion, a place where the true horrors unfold. In this hidden room, families are sacrificed, bound to the family's pact, their blood spilled to ensure the Kinwells' power remains unbroken. The more Thomas delves into the mystery, the more he begins to understand the role the town's gambling dens play in the Kinwell family's rituals. Though the public sees them as mere entertainment venues, they are, in truth, fronts for the sinister practices carried out by the family. The gambling den owners are either complicit in these rituals or too terrified to speak out. Each game of chance holds deadly stakes for the players, and those who lose are never seen again. It is in these dens that Thomas begins to piece together the horrific pattern. The Kinwells use the games to lure victims into their fold, promising them wealth and fortune, only to sacrifice them in secret. As Thomas uncovers the horror beneath the surface of Arkadelphia, he starts to realize that the town is not just haunted by its past, it is living in it. The sinister practices of the Kinwell family permeate every aspect of life in Arkadelphia, from its quietest corners to its most public spaces. The once thriving town is now under the control of a malevolent force, and it is growing stronger by the day. As Thomas Clark's investigation deepens, he begins to unravel the true nature of the gambling dens that dominate Arkadelphia. Initially, he had assumed these dens were simply a symptom of the town's decay, a place where people came to escape their mundane lives. But as he delves further into the secrets of the Kinwell family, he realizes that these establishments are far more sinister than mere entertainment venues. They are the lifeblood of the family's power and their demonic pact. The gambling dens housed in the town's most dilapidated buildings are always filled with a strange mixture of tension and excitement. At first glance, they appear to be no different from any other saloon or casino. Men and women gather around tables, drinking and betting, trying their luck. But Thomas quickly learns that the stakes in Arkadelphia's gambling world are much higher than anyone dares to acknowledge. Those who lose aren't just left with empty pockets. They are lost to the Kinwells, claimed by the demonic forces that have come to dominate the town. Thomas's breakthrough comes one late evening, when he is invited into one of the dens by a reluctant but desperate informant. The informant, a man who had once gambled away his entire family's savings, explains the horrific truth. The gambling dens serve as a front for the Kinwell family's rituals. While the townsfolk gamble, believing they are merely testing their luck, the real game is far more deadly. The Kinwells use these public spaces to select their next victims, those unlucky enough to lose their bets and be marked for sacrifice. Inside the den, the atmosphere is thick with an unnatural energy. The tables are filled with a mix of eager gamblers and quiet observers, all of whom seem unaware of the dark rituals that unfold in the hidden rooms below. The lights flicker intermittently, casting long shadows on the walls, and the air smells faintly of incense and decay. Thomas feels a deep unease settle in his chest as he observes the players, who seem eerily calm, their eyes devoid of emotion. It's as though they are pawns in a much larger game, unaware of the true cost of their participation. The deeper Thomas explores the dens, the more he uncovers the horrifying practices that take place in secret. Beneath the floors of the gambling halls, hidden chambers are used for the Kinwell family's unholy rituals. The floors are covered in strange symbols, and altars are positioned in the center, stained with the blood of the sacrificed. The town's most vulnerable citizens, those who lose the games, are dragged into these chambers where their fates are sealed. The rituals are grotesque, with chants in an ancient tongue that resonate through the walls, summoning forces beyond human comprehension. In these dark chambers, the Kinwells feed on the fear and despair of their victims. The lost souls of Arkadelphia are taken and transformed into a source of power, fueling the family's pact with the Devil's Bride. Through these rituals, the Kinwells maintain their grip on the town, ensuring their wealth, power, and immortality at the cost of innocent lives. As Thomas pieces together the final fragments of the puzzle, he begins to understand the true horror of Arkadelphia. The town itself is a living, breathing entity trapped in the clutches of an unholy cycle. The gambling dens are the key to this dark power, a place where life and death are decided by chance and blood. The more he uncovers, the more he realizes that escaping Arkadelphia may be impossible without facing the full wrath of the Kinwell family and their demonic influence. The chilling web of Arkadelphia's dark secrets finally leads Thomas Clark to the heart of the Kinwell family's terrifying influence. Armed with the knowledge of the family's bloodthirsty rituals and the sinister nature of the gambling dens, Thomas knows that the time has come to confront the Kinwells directly. But as he moves closer to the truth, he begins to feel the weight of the town's curse pressing down on him. The atmosphere in Arkadelphia grows increasingly oppressive, as if the town itself is aware of his investigation and is fighting back against his attempts to expose its darkness. The final confrontation begins when Thomas, having tracked down an ancient ledger detailing the Kinwell family's pact with the Devil's Bride, is summoned to the Kinwell mansion. The mansion, an imposing structure shrouded in mist, feels like a physical manifestation of the family's unholy power. As Thomas enters the mansion, he is greeted by Samuel Kinwell, the family patriarch, whose unsettling presence immediately sends a shiver down Thomas's spine. Samuel is calm, almost too calm, as if he is fully aware of what Thomas has uncovered and is not at all concerned. The mansion itself is a labyrinth of rooms and corridors, each more unsettling than the last. The walls are adorned with grotesque portraits of the Kinwell ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow Thomas as he moves through the house. The air smells of decay and something far darker, an ancient and unnatural scent that makes it difficult to breathe. Despite his mounting dread, Thomas presses on, determined to face the family's patriarch and put an end to the horror that has plagued the town for generations. When Samuel finally reveals the full extent of the family's dark powers, the true horror of the situation comes to light. He explains that the pact with the Devil's Bride was made long ago, not just to grant the family power, but to ensure their immortality. Over the years, the Kinwells have performed countless rituals, feeding off the fear and despair of their victims, sustaining their bloodline and their power. The family's wealth, influence, and terrifying grip on the town are all a result of their unholy dealings, and they will stop at nothing to protect it. But as Samuel speaks, something shifts in the air. Thomas begins to feel the presence of something far more malevolent, something that is not entirely of this world. The temperature drops, and the lights flicker. A dark, unnatural force fills the room, and Thomas realizes that he is no longer just facing the Kinwells, but something far worse. The Devil's Bride herself seems to be watching, her malevolent presence creeping into the mansion's walls. as though she is ready to claim the souls of all who reside there. In the ensuing struggle, Thomas fights for his life, narrowly escaping the Kinwell's clutches. But as he flees into the night, the mansion looms behind him, its windows dark and foreboding. The final confrontation is far from over. Although Thomas may have escaped, the town of Arkadelphia remains cursed, its dark forces still alive and well. Thomas's journey has revealed the terrifying truth, but as he leaves, he knows that the horrors of Arkadelphia are far from finished. As he boards the train to leave, the shadows of Arkadelphia seem to follow him, lingering at the edges of his vision. He can feel the town's evil stretching out across the land, a shadow that will never fully dissipate. The truth has been exposed, but it is a truth that may never truly be understood. The darkness of Arkadelphia remains, its grip tightening, its mysteries unsolved and its power undying. The question lingers in Thomas's mind as the train pulls away. Can evil ever truly be eradicated, or does it simply wait, hiding in the dark corners of the world, biding its time until it is ready to strike again?